Hi guys, it's Erin the Tacky Painter, and today we're going to paint this giant octopus painting. I've got the colors Titanium White, Phalo Blue, Phalo Green, and Napthol Crimson. My kids got a hold of that one. This is an 8x10 canvas sheet from Fredericks. As far as materials, I've got a sea sponge. You can just get those in a pack on Amazon. Various sizes of bright brushes and a round brush to get some detail. If you enjoy painting this with me, feel free to click the thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And you can also subscribe to my channel and click the bell to be notified when I add new videos every week. Now let's get tacky. Alright, we're going to start by painting in our background. So I've got my larger bright brush. I'm going to dip it in my water and wipe it off on my rag. And I'm going to get some of my Phalo Blue and Phalo Green and mix them together. And starting at the bottom, I'm just going to go up, back and forth in a U motion. I want it darkest at the bottom because when you're painting underwater, it's going to be darkest farthest from the light. Go back and get more paint when you need to. And if it doesn't cover really well the first time, you can always add another layer on top. That's the great thing about acrylics. Once it's dry, you can add another layer. Grabbing some white this time. Mixing that in. And just blending that in, continuing to curve my brush strokes. Some of this will be covered up by the octopus, so I'm not too worried about if my brush strokes show. Just trying to relax and breathe. Mixing more of that color. Adding more white to it. To get a lighter value. And my pressure with my brush is hard when I deposit the paint down, but then as I blend it in, I lighten my pressure. That helps with the blending. If your paint isn't gliding, you can always add more water to it, and that'll help increase the flow. I grabbed even more white this time. Just blending it in. Grabbing even more white as I get closer to the top. I want to remind you that there's picture-in-picture there, so you can use that photo as a reference. But don't feel bad if it doesn't end up looking exactly like mine. It's perfectly fine. You can use different colors. You can draw a different creature. Whatever you want to do, it's your painting. Just grabbing some white, and there's still some pigment on my brush of my bluish green color, so that's mixing in as I'm brushing. Now I'm going to rinse out my brush to get the white off of it, and I'm going to come back with another layer towards the bottom just to darken it up even more. So I'm grabbing my blue and green. And I'm just going to put another layer on the bottom. Now mine's still wet, so it blends in a little bit. If it had started to dry, it would have gotten too tacky and some of the paint would have lifted from underneath. So either do it when it's still wet completely or do it when it's dry completely, but not when it's in the middle. You won't like the result. So now it's darker on the bottom. I'm rinsing out my brush. I'm wiping it off and setting it aside. Don't ever let your brush sit in water. Now we're going to let that dry. And now we can draw in our octopus. I've just got some white chalk. There is a traceable on my website that you can use if you'd like. You would just rub the chalk on the back and then trace over it with a pen, and it would transfer the image for you. Oh, and I threw my chalk. Got it now. So I'm just going to draw him in. And I use chalk because with a little bit of water, it'll just come right off when you're done. I've drawn my water line up here. And my little boat, but he's going to be painted over when I paint in the sky. Now, I don't know the anatomy of an octopus. I just drew what I thought an octopus looked like. You can try to draw him more realistic if you like. You could draw a kraken, whatever kind of creature. I just thought it would be funny to have his tentacle come up and touch the boat. I'm just curving it. And I think tentacles are kind of like tree branches, where they're wider the closer to the trunk, and then they thin out the farther away they get. So that's what I did with the tentacles. I'm not sure if it's right, but it seemed right. There, he's drawn in. That was pretty simple. You can make him as big or as small as you want. You can add more fish. I just wanted to show you how I would paint an octopus. Now I think we're going to come back and paint the sky. So I've got my larger bright brush again, and I'm just going to take some white and some phthalo blue and mix them together. Mostly white. I'm just going to paint in the sky up top. Just horizontal brush strokes. I'm not going to edit that out. That's fine. Back and forth. I'm going to rinse out my brush and let that sky dry before I draw in the boat. Wipe it off. Okay, I've got a clean brush and I'm going to paint in my underpainting for the octopus. So to make that, I'm going to take my Napthol Crimson and my Phalo Blue and mix those together to make a dark purple color. I know the palette's not up there, I messed up. But it's just any red, any blue, mix them together, they'll make a dark purple. And that's what I'm using for my underpainting for the octopus. And this is going to be covered up, so if you get a little bit different color, don't worry about it. There, palette cam's back. I'm trying to leave a little bit of the chalk showing through so I can remember where the tentacles went and where there was a space between them. Grabbing more of that purple color and just filling him in. Trying to relax. Not worried about my brush direction or if my brush strokes show. That'll just add more texture. Using the edge of my brush and then filling it in. We'll put the eye back in later, so I'm not worried about it. If you need to increase the flow of your paint, remember you can add a little bit of water. That's what I like about acrylic paint. You can just thin it with water. You don't actually need paint thinner. Although I am thinking that maybe I might switch over to oils and try it. I don't know. I'm scared. I think it'd be hard for me to work in oils just because the painting would stay wet for so long that I would end up with little baby fingers in it and fingerprints all over and paint all over the walls. At least with acrylic it will dry quick enough to where they can't make a big of a mess with it. I've got 3 kids, so everything is a mess, everything's sticky. So maybe I'll switch to oils when they get older. Just using that purple color and filling in the tentacles, going on the edge of my brush when I need a little bit more control. And remember, you can pause this if I go too fast. You can speed it up if I'm going too slow. Whatever you need to do to be successful in painting this. And I'm switching to a smaller brush because I'm getting to the smaller parts of the tentacle. So I want a little bit more control. I forgot to get it wet first. It helps. Mixing more of that color. There, his underpainting's done, so I'm going to rinse out. And he has to dry before we start with the sponge. So I've let him dry. I've got my sea sponge here. And I'm going to get right into my red. I'm using Napthol Crimson, but use whatever red that you have. Swirl it around on the sponge. Float it up. And I'm just going to stamp it. Stamp this texture everywhere. And remember, you can use any color that you want. You can make a purple octopus, an orange octopus. I'm just choosing red. I wanted a simple color palette, so we're not using a lot of colors today. And I'll come back with a brush to get around the edges and to get along the tentacle. And I'm just stamping. Alright, that's pretty much dry now. I'm coming back with some red and white this time to get my next lighter value. And I've got that on there. I've got no globs of white on there, because if there's a glob of white on your sponge, you'll get a glob of white on your painting. And that's not what I was going for. So I'm just adding this lighter color where the light would be hitting, up towards the top, on top of the tentacles, not so much on the bottom. I put my sponge in the water because I don't want the paint to dry on the sponge. Then you couldn't get it out. I tried. Now I've got my little tiny bright, and I'm gonna make some dots with that brush. So I've gotten some red and white mixed together again, mostly red. And I'm doing the dots along the top of his tentacles now. Now his tentacle sort of gets flipped around here, so I'm not going to do all the red dots there. I'll save that. Just dotting, adding texture up towards the top, leaving the bottom darker. Just wherever the light would be hitting, adding a lighter color. One of the things I learned when I first started painting, just a few years ago, you always have to pay attention to where your light source is in your painting. Where's the light coming from? Where would the light hit on your subject? That's really important. If you can figure that out, you've pretty much figured out the hardest part of your paintings. I also had to figure out that in acrylic painting, you paint in layers. You do one layer, let it dry, and do another layer. Now you can glaze over the layer, which means thinning out your paint with either a glazing medium or water, and then just brushing that over your dried paint underneath. And it adds just a little bit of color, changes it just a little bit. But I found that the more layers you do, the better it looks. And if you aren't happy with your painting, it might just be that you need to add another layer. It might not be finished yet. So don't give up. Just add another layer. Alright, I'm coming back with my dark purple color now, because there's some spots where the light wouldn't hit up top. Like right between his eyes there. And back farther underneath. So try not to be discouraged in your painting, just keep going with it. Because chances are, if you keep going, you'll make changes that you like, but if you give up on it, then that's not good. And even if you do decide that in the end, after you finished it, that you don't like it, you can paint right over it again. So there's no worries. Just dotting this darker color in the areas where I think I need it. Now I'm rinsing out. And wiping off. Now I've got my one step bigger, but still smaller, bright brush. That's very technical. And I'm getting my purple color. And just now covering up where I left those chalk lines before, because I don't need them. And if you are using student paints, you might need to add another layer anyway because the paint might be too translucent. So don't worry about that. It's perfectly fine, just add another layer. Getting more of that purple color and adding some white. So I've got a light purple. And I'm going to paint the parts where his little suction cups are going to show. I don't know if that's probably what they're called. Sounds right. You don't have to do this, you can just paint the tops of his tentacles. You don't have to worry about the suction cups. Maybe more of that light purple. And coming up here, deciding where it's going to be. And another little part down here. Painting in his eye. Just a circle for now. I'm going to come back with more layers on top. Rinsing out. And wiping off. Getting more of my red and blue mixture. And I decided to adjust his shape a little bit. And that was painless right there. Just changed whatever I wanted. Let that dry and then I can add more color on top. Rinsing out. Alright, now I've got my small bright again, getting that light purple color. And I'm going to work on his eye. So the light would hit up here and right underneath. And then I'm going to rinse out and come back with a dark color in the opposite places. So I've got my dark purple now. And you'll see I didn't wipe off my brush very well, so it was very wet still. So I got a drop of water, and I'm just wiping it off with my finger. Now coming back with a dark color, going underneath the light, and underneath the light color there. There, it sort of makes it look 3D. I don't know if that's how Octopus really look, but that's how mine looks. Now I've got my round brush, dipping it in the water, and I'm getting some white and some red, and I'm going to go and outline the lighter parts. So basically pink, and I'm just going along this edge, and I don't just want a straight line there, so I'm coming back with some dots along it, to blend it in so I don't have just a line. And this is where the light would be touching. And just dotting it where I need to. This is why I use the sponge, because otherwise I would have just had to do dots along the whole thing. So it saved me some time using that sea sponge. Anything that saves time with me is good. I have to paint and then do the voiceovers while my children are still sleeping. So anything that saves time is always awesome. So I just made a line along the edge and then I made dot dot dots to sort of blend out the line. I'm not putting this bright color on the bottom because the light wouldn't touch there. If you need to increase the flow of your paint, go ahead and add some water. Not so much water that it doesn't stick to the canvas, but enough to help it increase the flow. Just painting that line and then making dots. Very simple, but take your time with it. Tentacles are starting to look more 3D, more round. If I had put the light color on the top and the bottom, they would look flat. They wouldn't have much shape. And sometimes it helps me if I sort of squint my eyes, then I can just see the color and see if I've got my color and value in the right spots. One of my little secrets. It would be even brighter up here because it's closer to the surface of the water. Not under. Don't do it. Rinsing my brush. Getting more of my purple color, red and blue, and just going back over that spot where I adjusted his shape. I just made the next lighter value and I'm just adding more texture there. Rinsing that out. Getting my light purple color, adding more white to it, and adding just the next layer onto the eye. Rinsing out. Getting my dark color, adding the dark layer on the eye, just underneath the light, where the light wouldn't hit. There, now he sort of looks like he has a 3D eye. It's cool. Rinsing out. Now I think I'm doing the suction cups. So I've got lighter purple, just making little ovals. They get smaller as they get farther away from his body. And I'm not too worried about the details on this. You could spend 3 hours painting this if you wanted to. I just wanted to make a short video, so I was hurrying. And like I said, the kids would have been up soon, so. And I've also found that if you're not happy with your painting, you might just need to spend a little bit more time on it. And using that light purple on the bottom. Well, oh, my kids must have... Yep, those are my kids shaking the palette cam. Every once in a while you'll see a little hand or a foot or see the camera shake. That's my kids. My life would definitely be boring without them. I love them. Rinsing out. And I think we're almost done. Just adding a dark spot right in the center of the eye, so I just took some blue just to make the center darker. Rinsing out. I've got my green and my blue mixed together, and I'm just using that as my first layer for my little boat. And again, you can make this boat as detailed as you want. You can make a big sailboat, whatever you want. I just made him little. I didn't want him to be the focus, so I didn't put a lot of detail into him. The kids were up at this point, so I had to hurry. But you can take as much time as you want. So now I've got my smaller bright. I'm just gonna come and sort of separate the sky from the water better. So I've got my green and blue mixture. I'm just gonna come back and forth, choppy brush strokes to make the surface of the water. Just back and forth. I just felt like it needed something to separate the sky and water better. You don't have to add this if you don't want to. You could come back and add another layer of light color on top of it to make it seem like it's shining. Take as much time on this painting as you want to. It's your painting. I'm rinsing out. And I've got my round brush again to come back with another layer on the boat and the little guy in the boat. So I've just got my blue, and I've added red because that makes a darker color, blue and red. And just painting in my boat again. And then I decided that it needed a little something else, so I just added some bubbles. So I rinsed out my brush. And, oh, maybe not the bubbles yet. What am I doing? Got some light purple. Oh, another layer on the eye. See, everything's about the layers. And also, acrylics dry darker, so sometimes after you let it dry, you'll see, well, it's not quite bright enough, so you add another layer. Now I'm doing the center of the tentacles. Again, I don't know if this is accurate to the octopus's anatomy, but it looked right, so I did it. Also, I don't know if I'm allowed to say octopuses. Octopi, maybe? I am not an English teacher, although that is what I went to school for. Rinsing out. And now I'll add the bubbles. So I'm just getting a medium sort of sea color by mixing my green and my blue. Adding more white to it, that was too dark. But you can always come back with more layers. And you could take more time with these bubbles. I was just hurrying, like I said. Which is not good. I should have tried to take my time, but now I've got more white. Just shaping the bubble. One thing about bubbles, I don't think they really have like harsh angles, so try to round them out. Don't make them pointy. And I made my bubbles smaller as I got closer to the surface. And I decided I needed a big one down there. So more of that medium color. And you can draw these in with chalk first if you want to, if that makes you feel more at ease. Or another thing you can use to draw is a charcoal pencil. And my palette cam, oh, it's back. So now I'm getting just my dark color, my blue and green, and adding that to the top. Outlining the top edge and then blending it in as I got towards the middle. Just adding the dark color at the top. Outlining the top edge and then blending it in. And if it's not dark enough, come back with another layer. Rinsing out. Coming back with my medium color for the middle. Just blending it in. Rinsing out. And grabbing my lighter color. Mostly white, a little bit of the blue-green mixture. And adding that to the bottom. Outlining the edge and then blending it towards the middle. Bubbles are kind of fun. My palette cam is going to go out because the memory was full on my camera. So sorry about that, but we are almost done. Just going to add some white reflective highlights on the bubbles. So I'm rinsing out and then just grabbing white and just adding some reflected light on the top of my bubbles. So I just want to remind you that there's always something to look forward to, and I look forward to painting with you guys next time. Thanks so much. Bye bye.